Good morning. Welcome to the fifth session of Woodland Summer Series, Reaching for the Stars. We've been talking about the past, the present, and the future of the church. And this morning, we look at the church from the perspective of missions. It's the most vital component in who we are as a people. Now, I suppose that we could begin talking about missions biblically. That we could go back to the number of times it's mentioned in Scripture. Matthew 10, for instance, where Jesus sends out his disciples to do what? Missions. Or how about the number of times that Paul would take up offerings to send to churches in need, churches like in Jerusalem, mission. Or we could talk about the church historically and talk about its emphasis on missions from the early church fathers to the Roman Catholic Church to the Protestant Reformation. The church has always been focused on missions. In 1845, our Baptist forebears gathered to form a new denomination, the Southern Baptist Convention, and the center pole of that ecclesiastical tent was missions. Missions. Consequently, we Baptists have spent a lot of time talking about missions. We've spent a lot of time educating each other in missions. For our young people, for instance, we had RAs and GAs. And when I was just a kid, my mother signed me up for RAs, which was, I guess, the Baptist equivalent of Boy Scouts. It was a good organization, but it didn't hold a candle to GAs, Girls Auxiliary, because in the Girls Auxiliary, they modeled what they had seen in their mothers and grandmothers and their teachers, the WMU, the Women's Missionary Union, where they learned about missions and missionaries. In GAs, you could become a queen. In RAs, they just wanted to keep you out of mischief. Well, I learned a lot about things, I suppose, in RAs, a lot of things about missions, but the best example I've ever had in learning about missions came from my grandmother. Every year, we Baptists have an offering around Christmas time. In my day and time, it was called the Lottie Moon Christmas Offering. And each year around Christmas, my grandmother would take in ironing so that she could make an offering to the Lottie Moon Christmas Offering. Now, my grandparents were not well off. They had 8 children and not a lot of money and a lot of needs. My grandmother had a lot of work feeding those children and ironing the clothes for those children. And yet each year she would take in additional ironing. Why? Because she believed in missions. I think one of the important lessons of my life is that one that's been imprinted for me. The image of her standing over an ironing board doing what she thought was the call of Jesus Christ. It's symbolic, I think, of the genius of Baptist life, of our commitment to missions, and how we cooperate. That is, that by pooling our gifts, we can do more together than just what we can do alone. This belief in cooperation is at the heart of who we are here at Woodland. It's why we are affiliated with the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship. By working with other sisters and brothers, we can share the cause of Christ. We can be on mission all over the world. Now, there are 2 people on our staff who know a great deal about that. They devoted their lives to mission. And I can't think of anybody else that I'd rather hear from than Diana Bridges and Lance Mays.
Well, it's a pleasure and privilege for me to listen to you guys talk about missions. As you know, we're talking in this Reaching for the Stars series of the past church life, the present church life, and what we think about the future. And today we're talking about missions, and both of you guys have had an interest and calling in missions. Can you think back about the first time that you thought, boy, this really intrigues me?
I think probably when I was in high school or college and I began looking at vocational ministry, mission seemed like a place where I might fit and where I might find some opportunity to do work that was meaningful. So that's what I think back to.
I think back to an experience at my church. We did a choir tour. Our choir that Randy runs here, the SACY, reminds me a lot of my choir growing up as a youth. And I was the youngest person when I was just after my freshman year in high school. We went on a choir tour to Colombia, South America, and that made a huge impact on my life. I was the youngest one. It was mostly older high school and college kids. They just embraced me on the experience, and we were able to do some really neat stuff. We had a pen pal that we wrote ahead of time, and I got to meet my pen pal in Bogota. We traveled around, we sang, we played handbells. It was just a really great experience and a kind of one of those marking moments in my life.
Well, picking up on that a little bit, what kind of mission education did you have when you were growing up?
I was a sunbeam. I was for mission education for preschoolers, I guess, and I remember my teachers were Mr. and Mrs. Espinosa. And so I remember certain details about what we did in that class, and I think it kind of made sure it was always on my radar as I grew up.
You still remember the song?
I definitely remember the song, not going to sing it today, I don't think, but yeah. And had my first experience with a piñata in that class, so it was good.
And mine was with RAs growing up in church and being exposed to missionaries and foreign home missions and the different offerings, Mary Hill Davis offering and Lottie Moon offering, Annie Armstrong. Talked a lot about missionaries and prayed for them on their birthdays, things like that. And as I grew up, it turned more as opposed to studying and learning as hands-on, doing things. As I mentioned a while ago about going on various mission trips, and then in college, I was at Baylor on the Mission Emphasis Week Steering Committee. So we hosted a campus-wide emphasis on missions and learning about missions, and had missionaries come into town from all over the world and had different workshops and things like that. So a lot of hands-on and education and learning. And I only have one class in seminary on missiology. It was a great class. But I really like the hands-on and the theological discussions around missions and what you're doing as you're doing it.
Mm-hmm. I was on the Missions Emphasis Week Steering Committee as well. and that was one of the reasons I ended up in California, actually, doing student ministry, because of an experience my senior year in Missions Emphasis Week. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, a lot of that is, I wonder if it's still being done at Baylor and other places, how much missions are emphasized there. I know there's a lot of involvement, but it'd be interesting to see, because that whole bit of education has changed, hasn't it? I mean, how we train kids, how we got them interested into missions, then going off to school. There are lots of places. What mission experiences have you been involved in the churches that you've served? Was there a particular meaningful event? You've already talked a little bit about that, Lance.
Yeah, another one that I could think of, when we were out in West Texas in a church in Brownfield, our youth worked a lot in the cotton fields, and so there wasn't a whole lot of summer available to do things. And so the youth committee there made a decision: do we want to do a mission trip every year, or do we want to do camp every year? We picked one or the other. We let the kids vote, and they picked to do a mission trip every year, which I thought was really intriguing. And one of the trips in particular that we did was really geared towards more high schoolers, but we took more middle schoolers, and we went to New Mexico first to do a little bit of kind of team building for a couple of days, working together. And then we went across the border in El Paso to Juarez and built a house with no electricity and no running water. So we mixed concrete by hand on the ground. We used hand saws, we used hammers. Of course, the house was very basic. There was no electrical or plumbing in it at all. There was a foundation, though, of concrete. And we did this with middle school kids. We built this house in a week from the dirt up. It was amazing how those kids really drew together, because they didn't know what they were doing. But somehow they were able to learn and work together and trust each other. And we built that house in 1 week. And it was just a really amazing experience.
Was that in the Colonias?
No, this was, it was, I guess it was in a Colonia Juarez on the other side of the border, and just a little community there. And most of the homes there were built with whatever they could find.
Yeah.
Some tin, curtains, some of it was even cardboard and just pallets, whatever they could find, they built houses with. And so we built a really nice house for this family, a 4-room house.
Yeah, I remember going on a mission trip to Canada with a group from California, and we spent a week there, I think, doing backyard Bible clubs and various things just to be of assistance to the churches. But really, my biggest introduction to a new kind of mission was moving to California, because I'd been involved in student ministry where we had buildings and money and staff, and then going into a community college with more than 20,000 students where we had really none of those things, and just had to figure out how to do ministry in a different way. And the campus where I was, Pasadena City College, was largely international, and so I volunteered as an ESL tutor there, just to be of use to the students who were there. And I was there for, I guess, 6 years doing that. And by the time I was finished, I had a completely different idea of what student ministry was than when I had started.
Started to say, gosh, what a transformational experience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what have you guys been involved in as far as Mission Woodland? And I know you could go on and on and on. Why don't you highlight your most exciting things?
I think our ESL program is a huge highlight. And expanding to add the Isaac Project, hopefully within the next few weeks even, we'll be beginning the clinic, and I think it's highly exciting.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I agree with that as well. I mean, I tell prospective teachers that it's cheap travel. You see the best the world has to offer every week. And, it took me a good while to convince somebody somewhere that this was worth doing. Now, Garrett didn't take that much convincing. He was on board right away. But, we didn't have any guarantees when we started out. But when we opened our doors the first day, we had between 20 and 25 folks come in to test, and just kind of took it from there. But I think that has to be the biggest highlight for me.
Explain the Isaac Project a little bit. Some folks may not understand that completely.
Do you want to take that?
Sure. Isaac Project is immigration services to help people. Well, one, it's a safe place for people to get help. There's a lot of people who will take advantage of immigrants, charge them exorbitant amounts of money with really very few services what they need. So the Isaac Project comes along and provides on a sliding scale for payment to provide basic immigration services. Several years ago, our government saw a huge need and a backlog of getting people through the process of immigration to our country. And the solution they came up with is working with churches and nonprofits to let them do immigration services for people. So they have these specialty trainings, which Woodland has hosted several times, about 6 times or so. It's a 40-hour class during 1 week, usually during the summer. And we partner with the Isaac Project to do that. So we've had a relationship with them for a long time. And they provide basic services like getting a green card to work, or citizenship classes to help pass the tests that they need to do in that process of becoming a full citizen. The different basic services like that, DACA services.
Right. And I'm excited about the fact that 2 of our ESL students are going to be the ones who are going to be in charge of our office, with the assistance of others from the other office, Isaac Project office in town. So I love seeing them take the lead.
Well, that's really exciting. It's also very encouraging because it helps us be the church. What are some of the obstacles for being mission-minded that you've discovered as of late?
One of the first things when I came to Woodland, it was a traditional mission trip where you go and you just kind of take over a town and you do things for people or to people almost. as opposed to doing it with them and at their invitation to join them on whatever they're working on, what God's doing in their areas. And so we kind of made that transition here. We don't take tons and tons of people on trips. That seems to be more of a burden for places that we go to as opposed to a help. And so now, and a good example is partnering with Jeff and Alicia Lee in Macedonia, North Macedonia, where we go there, we kind of see what they're doing, we join them in what they're doing, whether it's working at Paraka, the adult group home, or at the cow bank and the farm there. We see what they're doing and realize that we could do the same things here. We're also an encouragement to them as we provide news from here of how we're praying for them, and we could see how we can better pray for them in the work that they're doing there. It's just it's a different perspective on not seeing how we can take God to a place, but see what God is already doing in a place and joining the work that's already being done.
And I think, building on what Lance says, that previously we thought about taking our expertise into a place. And I think now, if we can focus on also what we have to learn, because I think there's always something that God wants to teach us as we get involved in various work here and around the world. So being a learner, being curious, not assuming that we have all the answers, going in with an attitude of humility that God has brought us together to do things that, are building the kingdom, but we don't have all the answers. And so I think having a different attitude going in is really, really important.
I love what C.S. Lewis was reported to have said to his new students who would come in to do a tutorial. He would say, "We have much to learn together."
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you guys have said is really so on target. Is there a particular mission or ministry that you think needs Woodland's attention these days?
I think we need to be very flexible. As I was thinking about this interview, I was thinking again about how wonderful it was that during COVID, a group from Woodland responded to that need and got busy helping people get appointments to get COVID vaccines. So I think we need to be very aware of what's going on in our community so that we can do what needs to be done, so that we can join other people doing the same work. We don't have to reinvent and just do it here. We can join people where work is already being done. We can partner with the food bank or Center for Refugee Services or any number of other groups just by being aware, okay, there's an extra need now, let's go and join them in that. In some cases, it may also be that we take something like Larkspur, what we're already doing at Larkspur, and we find other ways to support the staff and the teachers at Larkspur or at other public schools, that are under stress at this time. So I think, every year we need to be looking at what we're doing and see what can we add? Is there anything else that's not being done that we need to add? And then just being very aware of other things going around it. I don't have in my mind a big ministry necessarily that we need to start, but there may be one that comes along. I think about our foster care system that's very broken in the state. We're already doing some, we're building beds, we're coming alongside and meeting needs, but there may be other work that needs to be done in the coming months and years.
I get excited to thinking about, from my sabbatical, studying advocacy and what we can do. And a lot of things that we're already doing is just another step of advocacy, of what can we do to help with these systemic problems. Who do we need to talk to? What letters can we write? And I think that's a journey, hopefully we're going to be going on together in the coming months and in the next year of what steps can we be taking in the area of advocacy, of working on systemic problems, much like we've done with Oikonomos. We've done some kind of micro level things, but what macro level things can we do to help fix bigger issues that are citywide or statewide or national side? Who could we be writing to? What do we need to be writing about? Those kind of things. And I look forward to hearing from our members of what they're passionate about and what they're already doing and how we can learn from each other what we could be doing in those areas.
Well, both of you have this wonderful gift of seeing where we are, but also where we're headed. Is there anything that excites you right now, encourages you about what Woodland is doing mission-wise?
The Isaac Project, we've been working on that for
3 years.
about 3 years
Mhm.
to get this here, and we're finally starting to see the fruit of all that labor and prayer. Going back to North Macedonia on a trip, we're hopefully looking at a trip there in 2023. COVID kind of shut that down for a while, and I've been talking with Jeff, and they're finally open back up to where they're going to be able to take groups again. The advocacy that I just mentioned. So there's several areas that I'm very excited about that'll be coming up in the near future.
This is a small thing, but we have a little Spanish class that meets on Monday afternoons. And one of our ESL students from Turkey is in the class too, which I love. And I think, that's an example of us learning so that we can better minister in our city and beyond. Spanish is a major language, obviously, in our city. And so I hope that this will be a continuing thing that happens here at Woodland, that we try to learn so that we can serve better.
Well, I am grateful for your learning, because your learning is helping teach us. And thank you for the time that you spent today as we try to discover more about what God is wanting to do with us here at Woodland.
Thanks, Mike.